It's toast! Commish.
We're back.
It's so impressive every time.
Every single time. Next week, Sauce made us a nice, beautiful graphic that has some clouds and I don't know, some other cool shit to start the show. So that will debut next week. How you doing, Toast?
Good to be back on a little plate coverage. I find it's kind of cool to have your own little podcast. I'm not gonna lie, I look forward to this. A little bit later than normal this week. I had to be a dad on Monday. Commish had to be a coach on Tuesday, so here we are on Wednesday. But either way, I can't wait to talk some baseball with you. I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. We're starting to get into the thick of the summer. We're starting to know who's good, who's not so good. Things are starting to make a little bit more sense, I think, in the larger landscape of Major League Baseball.
I definitely would agree. Well, I guess we can just hop right into it. Like we kind of talked about last week, kind of changed the segments up just a little bit as far as going up or going down, kind of threw that to the side. Kind of want to start talking about contenders, pretenders. We're going to go through this episode. We're going to answer a whole bunch of questions that you guys had for us as well. That's going to kind of take us through this episode. Probably touch on a little bit of futures as well, as far as what teams that we think are worthy of putting some money on, maybe catch some futures in the future, or sorry, futures in the future. Yeah, that was awesome. But regardless, we can start out. One of the first questions, it was kind of funny. It said, Toast, you made me sad with that Yankees going to fizzle out at the end of the season comment, but you got to enjoy the Yankees while they're hot. Yeah, they're the hottest team in baseball right now. Here we are recording on the 12th, and what did they score? Another 15 runs tonight, and I'm not even kidding. I just 11 runs tonight. So
only 11. Only 11.
They had guys on base and whatnot. I was dead serious when I said they could have scored 15. So, yeah, there's no question that they're the hottest team in baseball. It's not. I don't have this vendetta against the Yankees. I'm starting to crawl into my villain role a little bit, kind of similar to the Braves last year with this Yankees team. Again, they are very, very good. I'm not trying to take that away from them, but when we're talking about
best run differential in baseball, best win percentage in baseball.
Yeah, their starters are the best in baseball. They got the best lineup in baseball. They're the best team in baseball. I mean, I just when you look at what they're going to have to do in October, if I think to assume that you're going to get Garrett Cole 100% is a stretch. I understand that he's working his way back. I understand he's made a couple starts now and he should be back soon. I get all of that. But still, I think that you have to be cautious with that, and you can't assume that he's going to be 100%. Luis Gil has been absolutely fantastic for them. There's really no question about what he's been able to do. Like, I love watching that kid pitch. It's something that really I can't underestimate what he's been able to do. But at the same time, I don't know if I really trust him when it comes to October baseball. I mean, am I crazy to say that, Commish? Before I keep going, am I crazy to say that? How do you feel about Luis Gil?
No, I like him, man. It's just, he's a young pitcher, and I worry about anybody that has problems with walks. And if you look at Gil so far this season, he's obviously been very, very good. He's got the 2.04 ERA, even the FIP, all that stuff looks good. But when you have a double-digit walk rate in October and you face better and better lineups, I was talking about this with a guy who coaches a national team at the 16U level this week, and obviously very different level of baseball, but like it's the same concept of like that's the best of the best among amateur baseball. The understanding of the strike zone when you're facing the best of the best lineups, and in Major League Baseball, of course, it's your top 8, top 10 teams that make it to October with a chance to win the World Series. Their understanding of the strike zone is better. They can have better quality at bats. Like Luis Gil in a postseason series, and I know everybody's going to refute this because he's pitched well against some good teams so far. It's a very different atmosphere. It's a very different level of intensity. It's a very different type of game planning that goes into a start. And like people don't like in the NBA, you typically have a day, 2 days between games. There's a lot of time for game planning. You have some more in-depth notes on guys. In the NFL, of course, you have a whole week. So you spend a whole week prepping for a team. In Major League Baseball, you play a game, then you play another game, and then another one, and then another one, and then you're in a new city, and then you play another game, and then another game, and then another game. Like, you're constantly moving on to the next guy, the next guy, the next guy. Well, in October, a lot of times you have days off built in. So you have an extra day to look at Luis Gil. You have an extra day to look at, the Clark Schmidts, guys who have had regular season success. Baseball is so unique in the way that its postseason is set up because it is such a fundamentally different game, and the approach to the game is so fundamentally different than what the regular season is. So I think the walk rate is a little bit of a concern. I mean, the stuff is obviously very, very good, but we also can't ignore the fact that he's got a 185 BABIP at this point in the season, but he's been very, very lucky with the number of runners he's stranded on base. So yeah, like I think it's fair to say that that's a little bit of a concern. I think you're hitting the head on the hammer with the who knows what we're going to get from Garrett Cole. I'm really not super comfortable with Nestor Cortez or Carlos Rodon starting a playoff game. Stroman and Schmidt, I like Schmidt a lot more than I like Stroman, but like there's definitely concerns with the rotation, and the bullpen has been pretty good, but it's not the same like Andrew Miller, Aroldis Chapman,
No.
gunner after gunner after gunner in the late innings. So I don't think you're off base.
Well, and again, going back to Heel, 12% swinging strike rate. Like, there's no way in hell he's going to have a 31% K percentage moving forward with that type of control. There's just no way in hell. So, I mean, I think that you could actually kind of sell high on Luis Heel right now and be okay with it. Again, he has been fantastic. I am not trying to take anything away from him. And if you're betting the Yankees every day, I would continue to do it. There's no reason not to. But again, this is a conversation where if we're talking about team futures and teams that are going to win the World Series and betting them now, not betting them before the season, betting them now, the Yankees are plus 500. Like, there's no value in that. There's no value in that at all. Like, I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, Commish, but that's not nearly the price that I would be looking at. I mean, I would stay far, far, far away from that.
Yeah, I don't even know what book you're getting plus 500 at. I mean, if you look at the odds across the board right now, 375, 450, 475, 450, 475 looks like it's consensus. But yeah, I mean, like the Yankees, you can assume they're going to the postseason at this point, especially with the expanded playoff format bet. I just don't know why you would invest in any of these the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Phillies at this point. Why would you invest at such a short price? At that point, you're better off betting them individually in October. You're better off betting them series over series. And if you really believe in them, bet the Yankees to win their first series and then roll that money over to the next series and so forth.
Exactly.
It's just such a short price, and there's so many things that can go wrong, right? Like we just talked about, like whether you agree with us or not, you can't deny that the possibility of Garrett Cole not being there in October is very real. Carlos Rodon injury history, Nestor Cortez injury history, Clark Schmidt not a long track record of success. Like there's a lot of things that could go wrong. Aaron Judge has had injury issues. Juan Soto has been phenomenal this year, banged up the last couple of weeks, right? Like if Juan Soto, God forbid, you never rooted for injuries, but like just God forbid Soto or Aaron Judge have a season-ending injury, the New York Yankees go from plus 450 to plus 700, plus 800, maybe potentially. And there's really just not a whole lot of reason to invest in them at this point. Like if you weren't on them preseason, I think even by the time October 1st gets here, the Yankees, maybe they're plus 275 at that point. Like you're not going to get a whole lot of closing value at this point. There's just no need to rush and to go bet this.
Yeah. And again, this isn't, before the comments go crazy, this isn't me saying that I think New York's not going to make the playoffs or anything of that nature. I just don't think that if you're trying to bet a World Series team to win the World Series right now at plus 500, that's not a team that you're trying to, you should be investing your money in. That's just me personally. I think there's other ways to approach that situation.
Well, tell me then. So give me one. Give me a team that you're looking at right now that undervalued. They have a good chance to potentially make a deep postseason run, or at minimum get you a lot of closing value to where you could hedge or take a cash out come October.
You're gonna make me do it, aren't you?
I don't make you do anything, Toast. I feel like you come on here and you like you put your own shackles on and you're like, oh, okay, I'll do it.
The Milwaukee Brewers. Yeah. 30-1 odds. Milwaukee Brewers. We were talking about this pre-show. I said I didn't know if I was going to want to come out with it or not, but it is what it is. Am I concerned about the starting pitching? Yes, of course. Freddie Peralta has looked like crap. But at the same time, I think that if he were to pitch well, I think they have pieces that they could possibly move in the lower levels to possibly go get a guy like a Crochet or a Luzardo. And if they were to do that, or even not, just bring up a couple of their guys and find one that might stick. I mean, I just feel like this team is going to be an extremely hard out. I mean, you have a guy in Christian Yelich, who's a former MVP, that I understand that he doesn't playing at the MVP level that he once was, but he is a former MVP, and he's a guy that I would assume that he's going to contribute come October. You have a guy in Wilson Contreras that is a catcher and yet is playing at an MVP level right now. And if he continues to play that way, I mean, that's two really scary bats in the lineup. When you add a guy with Willie Adames that I understand strikes out at 22% or even more than that. But he has pop and he has a lot of energy. And when come a postseason series, if he were to get hot, that lineup gets very scary. Now you add in the fact that Rhys Hoskins is a veteran that's been there before with a team like the Phillies. I understand they didn't win, but and I understand that playing in Philadelphia kind of gives you superpowers sometimes, but he's been there and done that in the postseason. Joey Ortiz is a special rookie as well, that's just kind of lighting the world on fire. So, and then on top of that, that bullpen is the I guess cherry on top. I mean, that I trust them, and I think they've been very good, especially the top three arms in that bullpen. When you take a look at them, I mean, Trevor McGill, Brian Hudson, and Elvis Peguero have been really, really good for this team. If they just get Piamps to just somewhat under control, and then they had that new kid, Jared Koenig, as well, that's pitching extremely well right now. I mean, that's a very, very deep bullpen. So maybe the starters aren't fantastic like Colin Ray and whatnot, but if Pat Murphy knows what he's doing, and he has a lot of experience doing this, I understand not at this level, but I feel like at this number at plus 2,500, they could be a very, very scary out. And one thing that Commish said to me pre-show that I wish I thought of on my own is they very similar to the Arizona Diamondbacks as last year. And I'm not trying to say that their rosters are the same or anything, but they play different baseball. The reason that I like Milwaukee, they run, they steal bases. They're going first to third. They're doing the little things. Today, they played a game. They were playing against Toronto and Chris Bassett. They had a sacrifice bunt in the second inning. Like, you just don't really see that. And my point to that is, if they're committed to that and they're committed to that brand of baseball 1 through 9 in that lineup, and then you get to October and they're still committed to that, and it's just going to be they're going to be a very scary out, and you're going to be getting them like Commish said at almost 30-1 on your money. I think that you could. I think that's a team that's worth investing in.
I think you're crazy. I do.
Your thoughts?
I think you're crazy. I don't think you're senile though. And I do agree with you in the sense that they're a very unique baseball team that could present matchup problems depending on who they face. And, you mentioned the stolen bases. You just look at the last 30 days, they've stolen 38 bases. They've been caught 6 times. You look at the other teams on this list. Washington's not going to the playoffs. Boston might. Cincinnati probably not. San Diego might. Colorado definitely not. Jesus Christ. And the Phillies, they're stealing significantly more bases than other potential playoff teams or likely playoff teams. That's going to create some potential matchup advantages, especially if you're facing a team that doesn't have a lockdown catcher or doesn't have a bunch of guys that are quick to the plate. So there's number one reason to like them. They play a unique brand of baseball that could, and it's a chaotic brand of baseball that we talk about it every single year in a small sample size. If you run the bases, if you force teams to make plays, if you do you could play some small ball. We saw the Royals have a nice run back in 2015, I think, playing a lot of small ball. The Guardians in 2016 were a similar type of team. We've seen that blueprint before, where if teams are aggressive on the bases, they force other teams to make plays in high stress situations. You can give yourself a chance to win. So I think that's one point in their favor. Point number 2, the bullpen overall not very good, and this is where we talk about the difference between trying to win regular season baseball games versus postseason playoff games. Teams to win a lot of games in the regular season, like the Dodgers, the Braves, these teams that win 100 games, the Yankees, you have to have a lot of good bats. You have to have a pretty deep pitching staff, starting pitching and a bullpen, because you can't use the same relievers 4 or 5 times in a week. But in the postseason, you only need a few guys. Last year, we saw it with Texas. We saw it with they only had Leclerc, Chapman and Spores 7, 8, 9. Everybody else was complete ass. The Diamondbacks were similar. They had who they had? They had Ginkel, Sewald, and was it Thompson? I think Thompson was the third guy.
Thompson, Mantiply. Yeah.
Mantiply was the other one. Yeah. So they had very few guys that they could rely on in the late innings. The Braves won the championship a few years ago. It was the same thing. They had Matzik, Will Smith, and I think it was AJ Minter. They're 7, 8, 9 guys, and Snicker abused the shit out of them, right? And it got them to a World Series, and they won a championship with it. And Cleveland did it. They had Andrew Miller, Cody Allen, Brian Shaw. There's a blueprint. You need 3 high leverage relievers that can cover the 7th, 8th, and 9th for you, and potentially, a little bit of the 6th if one of those guys can give you multiple innings. The Brewers, their bullpen in totality is not very good, very league average to below league average overall. But if you just look at their high leverage innings this year, they're top 10 in FIP, they're top 10 in K percentage. And I know FIP is, basically just K percentage and walk percentage with the home runs, but they strike out a lot of guys. They don't walk many guys. And they've actually not stranded that many base runners. So there's an argument to be made that, they could be even better than some of the stats we've seen. So they're a unique team. I think at 30-1, if we go back and we look at some of these teams on this list, they're probably the most unique team. Like Texas, they're going to have to bang, similar to last year. They're going to have to hit their way to a championship. The Twins, elite bullpen, but it's a rather cookie cutter roster. The Guardians, I just don't think are built to win in October. Just to be frank, the Astros aren't going to make it to October. The Mariners have great starting pitching, but these are all teams that are very game plannable. Not to say that they're easy to beat, but you can game plan for them. But Milwaukee, I think, is a very interesting team in the sense that it's really, really hard to game plan for. You can't take away a team's ability to steal bases if they want to do that. It's not like basketball where you can take away a guy's left hand, or you can double, or you can trap and do these things. If a team gets on base, they can run. There's really not a whole lot you can do to slow that down.
Yeah. I guess, then is there a team that you're looking at that you could be like, oh, okay, I can see that team making a run? Because, there's only so many choices here, you know what I mean? Unless you're really going down in the depths. So is there one team that catches your eye? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. I know that.
You are. I have no interest in the Dodgers, Yankees, Phillies at such a short price, like I already said. The Braves offense has been absolutely atrocious. I just don't want anything to do with them.
They're done.
Excuse me. The Orioles, I like the Orioles, but I don't think at the price, for a team that could potentially not win their division, at less than 10-1. I think they have a very good roster, but I'm not willing to bite there. I think the Mariners have the starting pitching to compete in any postseason series. They just strike out a lot. So I'm not I'm not a huge fan of them. If they were at 20-1, I think I'd be more willing to take a stab. Houston, like I said, I don't think they're going to make the postseason. The Guardians, I have no interest. I know they've hit more home runs this year, which should help their postseason prospects. I just don't think they're going to have the starting pitching, and I worry about their bullpen. They continue to use Clase so much. They continue to use their high leverage guys so much that I worry about their longevity over the course of a season. The Twins are a team that they're much maligned, of course. They're a team that if they're healthy, if they have Royce Lewis, if they have Carlos Correa, if they have Miranda, if they have all their guys available, and who knows what they do at the trade deadline, at 25, 30-1, they have as good of a bullpen, I think, as anybody. And they have a deep bullpen that could survive a 5-7 game series. They can shorten games in a way that I don't think anybody else on this team can do. Pablo Lopez, I know Toast is going to tell you, has not been great. I know. Bailey Ober has been very, very good, very, very bad at times. But if he's good, he can be very good. Joe Ryan, when he's good, can be as good as any pitcher in the American League. The Twins have 3 guys in that rotation that I would trust to be competitive, to keep them into a ball game through 5 innings. The bullpen can go toe-to-toe with any other team in the American League. If they can just get healthy and they can hit a little bit, I think this is a very, very good price on them at 25, 28, 30-1, depending where you're looking at the books. I think the Twins, and I don't know if this Bet365 price is accurate or not. I didn't fact check that, but at 45-1, I would absolutely take a small stab on them. They need some things to go their way for sure. But this is a team that, right? But this is a team that should be in the postseason if they just stay reasonably healthy. I think that if they can get the offense healthy. Why not?
If Royce Lewis is healthy, they are in the conversation. I think you have to put them in the conversation. The question is if he is healthy. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's why
I,
that's why you get him at 30-1, right?
right.
If Royce Lewis is healthy, I think like if you knew Royce Lewis is going to be healthy, I think they're a 20-1 team. Like I think they're in the same conversation as the Mariners if Royce Lewis is healthy. So if you look at this list, you're getting the Yankees at, we could just say generously 5-1. Then you get the Orioles at between 5 and 10-1. So those are your two favorites in the American League. I think the Twins are absolutely in the conversation for the third most likely team in the American League to win the pennant. And at that price, I would be much more willing to take a stab on Minnesota than I would be Texas, Cleveland, Houston, or Seattle.
Well, and you know what's kind of gross is that I understand. I talk a lot about Pablo Lopez being bad, but if he were to get right, a lot of people talk about his body and how long and lengthy he is and stuff like that. Him, Joe Ryan, and Bailey Ober, if they are on, that is a very solid three. And then behind them, you're going to have Paddock and SWR, who look. Paddock, they've won games when Paddock is on the mound. I understand that he has looked bad at times, but he's one of the guys that I truly believe that he's going to continue to get better through the year. I could be way off on that with Chris Paddock, but
Velo's
I'm not.
been up.
I know it's
Yeah.
going to. I truly believe that in my heart of hearts that he's going to continue to get better. And then, like I said, SWR has pitched really well for them as well. And you're not going to ask those guys most likely. I mean, you might ask one of them to start a game or so, but most likely you're going to have them piggyback or have them go a few innings and then have bullpen guys go behind them. And if their bullpen is firing at all cylinders, it's going to make sense. I don't know if the defense is going to be there. That's an issue with me. Second base.
Yeah, we saw that with the Rays last year. Like the Rays, everybody loved the Rays, and we talked about it. I don't know if it was on Sauce's show or I talked about it on somebody's show. Like their defense was a major disadvantage, especially against a Texas team that was one of the best, if not the best, defensive team in the league. I'm with you, and that's a huge reason why Pablo Lopez has struggled. His ERA is over 2 runs higher than his expected ERA, and that's been a theme all season. If they just cannot convert balls in plays to outs, that is a concern, a very legitimate concern that could sink their season. But again, like, they're 30-1. You're going to find flaws in a team that's 30-1.
Of course. And I was just, off the top of my head poking holes. And that was the other thing. It's the defense. And I guess this falls into the defensive categories, but the catching issue would be an issue for me as well. Cause I do think that
Ryan Jeffers.
it's not that Ryan Jeffers has been just fine. You relax on Ryan.
This is an inside joke back from our AL preview show.
Ryan Jeffers does have pop, and he has shown his pop this season. My issue is I don't know if I like them controlling the running game. I understand they wouldn't be playing the Brewers, but if they faced a team that could run or has the ability to run, that could expose them as well. But again, you're getting them at a huge plus price. So again, you're just looking at. So again, guys, I'm just trying to give you guys other advantage or other things to look at besides the Yankees and the Dodgers, which again, call us haters or whatever, but neither one of us think either one of those two teams are winning the pennant or the World Series, excuse me. So that's just that's just how I feel about that.
I will say I'm not going to say that about the Dodgers. I'm not going to say that about the Dodgers. I can get behind Tyler Glass now and Yamamoto 1-2 in that rotation, but they wouldn't be my pick. I'm not picking them. This is a little bit of a cop out. I'm not picking them, but I could see them winning the pennant more than I could see the Yankees winning the pennant.
100% agreed. But I guess I just still don't trust. I don't know about the bullpen, dude.
For the bullpen and the defense, both of those.
The defense is a completely different question, but man, I don't know what to feel about Phillips, Hudson, and Trident. Like, I know that the numbers are good. I just don't know. I don't know why. But
you got to remember, you also need those guys on back-to-back days.
I know.
Like in the playoffs, you have 7 games to win 4, 5 games to win 3. You have to be able to go back 2 guys back-to-back. You have to be able to abuse. Genuinely, this sounds bad. You have to be able to abuse guys to get through October. I don't know if you could do that with Blake Trinan. I don't know if you can do that with.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's my issue. So,
I think Tyler Matzik had appeared in like 8 of the Braves' 11 playoff games. Will Smith, Snitker had used Matzik, Minter, Will Smith, I think, in like 8 of their first 11 playoff games that year. I don't think you can do that with a Blake Trinan.
And I think unless they can make moves, but I think that you're going to need Gratterall too. Like, I think that you need somebody that can just go in there and pump 100 down the, you know what I mean? Pump it all the way down there and see what happens. Because
Yeah.
if you don't have somebody like that can go in there and get a couple outs or at least throw hard, I mean, you're really setting yourself up for disaster. I mean, I just
And just some bad luck on balls in play. Like that, again, a small sample size. If you can't get swings and misses, you just leave yourself vulnerable to bleeders through the hole, to bloops that fall in front of the outfield. Like that's the name of the game. If you can't strike guys out in a small sample size, a team could bleed you to death with soft contact. It's a possibility.
yeah.
So. You know who's not winning the World Series, though? And we can both agree on this definitively. And I want to say thank you to everybody that joined in the comments last week. I know we had Low Key Productions had a very nice, thoughtful quote about Bo Bichette being dejected, looking like he's preparing to leave the team. And he agreed with me. Bo Bichette is definitely a liability. These are Low Key's words, not even my words. His defense is awful, and he witnessed it too. Body language is poor, et cetera, et cetera. The Blue Jays are sunk. I did see a rumor that Bo Bichette might be in Cleveland here in a few weeks, potentially as a trade.
Get out of shut up.
Who knows? Who knows? The Blue Jays and the Guardians have a pretty good relationship in that with their front offices. Shapiro used to be in Cleveland. I'm just saying. We almost sent J-Ram there a few years ago. Lourdes Gurriel, that deal was almost on the table. I'm just saying. Is Bo Bichette coming to Cleveland?
Do you want Bo Bichette in Cleveland?
No, fuck no. I don't want Bo Bichette. I'm just saying.
I mean, is Rocchio that bad? I mean,
Bo Bichette is better than Bo Bichette would be the best shortstop on Cleveland's roster. I will say that. But defensively, he's a liability.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to make a case that he's better than Brian Rocchio, but man,
that deal
All
would
right.
make a ton of sense for Cleveland.
Man, that would be weird. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I guess, yeah, they need somebody, but yeah, I get it. So that threw me a little bit. I ain't gonna lie to you. That threw me a
Now
little
he's
bit.
going to be thinking about this one. We're going to be trying to get through the rest of the show, and he's going to be thinking about Bo Bichette in a Cleveland uniform.
A little bit. I just man, if they need power too, yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
He fits that high contact mold that the Guardians love as well.
Yeah. I get it.
Saying.
It makes sense. I want to know who they're giving up. I'm hoping, I mean, obviously it wouldn't be anybody starting or anything like that, most likely. Right. So whatever, but I'd like to see who they're giving up for sure. But anyway, I know there were some other questions and stuff like that as well.
The easiest one we could knock out, someone just wanted us to go over teams that have been hot, seeing the baseball well, teams that have not. So you can always go to Fangraphs, just go to teams. I'm actually just going to go through the whole step here. So if you go to Fangraphs, the homepage here, you could go to teams, 2024 batting, go to splits leaderboards, and then you go to make sure you filter team up here. You have batting filtered on, and then you can filter 2024. I always like to look at, last 30 or last 14, but if you look at the last 30 days overall, the Yankees, Orioles, Dodgers, Padres, Cleveland, number 5, Cardinals might be a little bit of a surprise. 6th best WRC plus, which is park adjusted over the last 30 days. If you look at the last 14 days, probably relatively similar because obviously that's included in the last 30. Dodgers, Padres, Orioles, Mets, a team to be reckoned with. Sauce said on the show this morning, and then the Diamondbacks and Yankees. So you can see those teams playing really well. On the opposite side, the Angels have been absolute piss. The Rockies, we know, are just an embarrassment to Major League Baseball. A team that might surprise people, the Atlanta Braves are 27th in WRC plus, which if you've been following the Braves should not be a surprise. But for a team that has the reigning home run champ, Austin Riley, who's got MVP votes, Michael Harris, like all these, recognizable names to be 27th in WRC plus, it has to be a surprise. I know you love the Braves. I know this has to hurt to read this. What do you think, Toast?
Yeah, man. I happen to have these numbers written down. Since May 1st, 28th, since May 1st, the Atlanta Braves 28th in Major League Baseball in batting average, 27th in OPS, 27th in WRC plus, 17th in home runs, 29th in stolen bases, 28th in runs scored. The one thing Atlanta does well, number 1 in hard hit percentage. You boys can smoke that ball right into the ground.
Yeah, but what type of contact are they smoking?
Right into the ground.
Yep.
So I honestly, and just going back to like that future conversation, like how are the Braves still plus 450 to win the World Series? Like what?
Especially with no Acuna, no Strider.
I mean, look at and I know this isn't, we're not really daily picks on this show, but like, again, this is the 12th and I've played Baltimore back-to-back days against Atlanta. I got Baltimore at plus money yesterday. I got Baltimore at minus 118 today. Like at this point, you can essentially just fade the Braves because I don't know if people are still betting them because they think that they're good and they're just because they have the Braves on their jersey, or if they're just completely mispriced by the whole by the whole market, and we can take advantage of that for another week or so. Like because I honestly don't understand. I'm not trying to make.
I mean, we're still getting the Astros at fucking even money, bro.
No, I get it, and that's what
the
I'm
Astros
saying.
are 10 games under 500, and we're still seeing them at a pick'em. Like,
I mean, and I played the Giants 2 of the last 3 nights, baby. So I have no problem.
Prices. I think we swept that on the show today, me, you, and Sauce.
Yeah, I don't think. And again, I'm not trying to make a case that I think that Baltimore should be like a minus 160 favorite over the Braves, but they should be at least minus 130. I think it ended up getting there closer to first pitch, but they should be minus 130, minus 140 against this Braves team. And then and still bettable. I mean, you could still bet that. I would have bet minus 140 today with Povich on the mound against Schwellenbach. And been more than comfortable with it. So again, it's just one of those things that we just have to pay attention to because I truly believe that it doesn't even make sense to me. Like people must be pumping money into those teams. Like there's nothing else that can possibly make sense.
Well, they're public teams for sure. But anyway, this feeds into our next question. So like, we're looking at hot offenses and things like that. When you're looking at these splits, what are your go-to splits? Like, do you look at the last 7 days? You look at the last 14? You look at the last 30? I assume you're not looking at full season because obviously there's a lot of noise in that. Like, Acuna, for example, is in the Braves lineup for quite a bit of time, and then he's not. You can go, any lineup, right? Soto missed a few games for the Yankees. Cleveland's lineup has been very different at times this year. Minnesota with and without Royce Lewis, with and without Correa. The list goes on and on. So we're not looking at full season, obviously, but last 7, last 14, last 30, is there one split that you value more for offense over the others?
I really kind of throw away like last 7. The reason that I say that is because it's just I just don't feel like it can be really small. Like for instance, like if a team only sees, a couple left-handed pitchers, maybe 1 or 2 starters that week, and then a couple guys out of the bullpen, maybe those numbers and they hit them up, but since it's such a small sample, maybe those numbers are skewed a little bit. So I like to stay in that 14 to 30 day range. I also like to pay attention. So like, let's just say over the last 14 and 30 days, and I'm just throwing a team out, just Boston. Let's just say Boston, over the last 28 or last 14 and 30 days against left-handed pitching, they've been really good. Okay. So if I'll take that for what it is, they've been good, but then I'll also kind of dig a little bit deeper, and then I'll maybe go in and look at the game logs of what left-handed pitchers they've faced or seen, and how many have they seen? Have they seen, over the last 2 weeks, have they seen 7 left-handed pitchers and they've been really, or I just said they've been good against them. So obviously they've been good, but you can go the other way too, where if they've seen a whole bunch of lefties and they have really bad numbers against lefties, and you're like, oh, okay, they can't hit lefties. And then you go up and look at the lefties that they're seeing, and it's all the best lefties in the league. You can understand why they're having bad numbers. And then you can start to see that they might be they have a chance to break out a little bit. So I like using splits like WRC plus and stuff like that are park adjusted. But OPS plus is another one that's pretty good. Anything with a plus mark, just because for me, it's usually adjusted in a way to make it simple to understand, being 100 being league average. And so you can really kind of get a gauge of who's really good and who's really bad comparing to that. But again, it kind of just depends also on what you like. Obviously, lefty righty splits is huge, but yeah, it's just one of those things where I like things that are park adjusted and whatnot. But that's just me personally. I know other people that like it. Like for me, like batting average. Like I really don't pay attention to batting average. I just feel like there's so many other stats that you can look at that can give you a much more better picture of what somebody or a team is doing rather than batting average. So just certain things like that. Same thing with ERA. Like ERA doesn't even really do anything for me. Like there's so many other things that you can look at again that can give you a better example.
You can look at the lunar cycles and you have a more predictive value than looking at ERA.
Yeah. So
that's one man's
again,
opinion.
I'm not, and if somebody that likes to look at ERA and whatnot, it's not a shot against them. But when you're doing this on a day-to-day basis, whatever their ERA is essentially means nothing to me. Like I honestly couldn't tell you what anybody's ERA in this league is. Like I want to know. I'm all about them whips and fips, if you know what I mean. So
dude, I thought about that the other day. Someone was talking like, no, it might have been Beaver was giving me shit about Pablo Lopez, and I actually had no idea that his ERA was 5.70 or whatever it was, because his xERA was 3.18 and his FIP is like 3.40.
Yeah,
and I was like, like maybe he hasn't been as good as I keep telling people. Like at the end of the day, he's still giving up runs, but so it sounds like last 14, last 30 for offensive splits, and then you like the park adjusted stuff and anything indexed to 100 for league average. I tend to agree. I'm a big, so like if I'm looking at versus left-handed pitching, I really like looking at last 30, because if you go look at last 14, you run the risk of, like Toast is saying, like Detroit has they've only had 62 plate appearances against left-handed pitching over the last 2 weeks. So they basically have not seen left-handed pitching. So there's just not a whole lot of validity to this number, a 92 WRC plus. Same with the Royals down here. If you give them another 100 plate appearances, that number could change dramatically. I'm a big fan with left-handed
for better or worse, by the way. That doesn't necessarily mean it's better. Yeah, good.
But if you go to the last 30, you see that you usually get around 250 plate appearances. There's not really many teams below 200. If you use the last 30, like it just evens out over the course of a month. So I like last 30 looking at left-handed pitching. If you're looking at offenses with right-handed pitching, you can get that same sample size, if not a little bit more, in 14 days. Obviously, right-handed pitching is just a lot more common. So you can look around the league averages about 300, 325. There's not very many teams that see less than 275 plate appearances across 14 days against right-handed pitching. So I'm a big last 14 versus right-handed pitching, last 30 against left-handed pitching. My favorite stats to look at, like OPS is very highly correlated with runs scored. WRC plus is park adjusted. Another reason, like Toast said, to throw out the last 7, if you just played in Coors, if you just played the Rockies, I'd like, even if it's not at Coors, if you just played the Rockies for 4 games and that's 4 of your last 6 games in the last 7 days, no, I'm not looking at your last 7 day splits and thinking that means jack shit. I'm sorry. The team is just absolutely pitiful, but WRC plus is a good one.
Really quickly to that, hold on though. Really quickly to that point, like not only could they be playing a bad team, like maybe they played in Wrigley and the wind was blowing out,
right?
And it was aided by that. I mean, so baseball is a funny thing like that. So I mean, it's really hard to narrow down what the reasons for those things like that, and you learn that when you bet every day. But yeah, you pay attention to certain things like that, and this gives you a reason of how they can calculate that. But yeah,
yep. For sure. And that's why, like, that stuff, the noise, like you call that noise when you have variables that are skewing data too much, that tends to even itself out over 14, 30 or larger sample sizes. So that's why I think both Toast and I gravitate towards those. I do like batting average just as something to keep an eye on. It's definitely like 5th or 6th on my list. Like I'll just take a cursory glance at it sometimes just to see. And really the only reason I'm looking at it is, at the end of the day, like there's a lot of stats that are much better than batting average, but at the end of the day, you still need to be able to get base hits to score runs. It's usually very highly correlated with OPS and WRC plus. Like you're not going to see a team that's number 1 in batting average like the Padres and have them be 15th in WRC plus. You can actually see right here. This is right-handed pitching last 14 days. They're number 1 in batting average and number 2 in OPS, and then number 1 in WRC plus. So they tend to be correlated with one another. But at the end of the day, you still need to be able to get some base hits. Like you're not going to walk 4 times in an inning very often. So to score runs, you do need to be able to get hits enough. And then ISO is another good one. if you don't get very many hits, you need to be able to hit the ball over the fence, or you need to hit the ball in the gap consistently. You need to maximize the outcomes of your balls in play. So ISO is a good one. But again, it's the more you do this stuff, I think the more you start to see the art in it, and you start to be able to understand, okay, a team's not great here, but they're, they don't have a great average, but they have good power, so they could still be a good offense. Or they have a high batting average, but they don't hit a lot of home runs. So, they need to be able to face a low strikeout pitcher where they can put 3 or 4 balls in play in an inning and they can score a couple of runs or sustain a rally. So you learn stuff as you go. I think the biggest thing is just, getting in all this data by yourself. It's great to listen to shows, whether it's us or other people. And we always appreciate that you check out our content, but learn how to manipulate this data for yourself, learn how to look at it for yourself and figure out what works for you, what doesn't, start to put together your own picture. Toast and I look at games very different. Sauce looks at games different than both of us. Prop Beaver different, it goes on and on. Everyone brings a different lens. I coach, right? Some people, are in this purely from a mathematical perspective. There's a lot of different ways to look at baseball, especially from a betting perspective. So I just encourage everybody to get in here and, learn how to do this stuff for yourself as much as you can.
And I guess the only thing I can add to that is don't let all the stuff, I make funny jokes like the whips and the FIPS and the ISOs and the WRC pluses. Don't let the names and stuff scare you away. I hear so many people say things to me like, oh, I don't even pay attention to that stuff because that stuff's way over my head. And it's not. And I think that if you took just 5 minutes to understand it, that it would help you a lot. And my point to that is, so you could just go one at a time, one at a week, start with WRC plus and look at that for a week and just to understand how that works and who's good in that and whatnot. And then you can move on to something like ISO power and stuff like that. But I think that the more that you take the time to learn one, understand it, and then move on to another would be the best probably way to approach it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you guys have questions about individual ones, I know we had a question about Sierra this week that we'll get to in a second. If you have questions about specific metrics, one, I highly recommend, and I'll just do it with you right now. We can, I'll just pull this up. If you just Google, WRC plus, for example, just Google WRC plus fan graphs. They have a library that explains all of this stuff for you. It explains the calculation, which again, this is a scary calculation to look at. Fangraphs does a really good job giving you a description of what all of this means right here and breaking it down in a very easy to understand way for you. They have a table in here somewhere so you can see league average is 100, right? It's indexed, and then you can see 15, above average is 115, grade is 140. The Aaron Judges of the world's the 160 WRC plus. And then they give you some cheat sheets and things like that. So it's a great tool. Just Google it. Spend time with one, WRC plus, like Toast mentioned. If you have questions, just leave it in the comments. We're here to help you guys learn. We learn stuff too, right? We go back to the fundamentals and we see things different. We learn things over time. So absolutely, don't hesitate to leave something in the comments for us and we'll get to it. Which again, Sierra this week.
Yeah.
So someone asked, they said, let me pull up the comment. It was Def Wins Champs. It said, would really enjoy a discussion about Sierra if possible. On the betting show, I always hear you guys talking about a pitcher's xFIP, ERA, WHIP, BABIP, etc., but wonder why Sierra is never mentioned. So thoughts, Toast? Why have you not mentioned Sierra on the show? I know neither of us have mentioned it. I'm just curious your thoughts.
Yeah. So for me, Sierra is something that so the definition of it is it quantifies a pitcher's performance by trying to eliminate factors that the pitchers can't control themselves. So I think that when you're looking at Sierra, it's good to look, it's a big picture stat. When you're looking at it, not even a month-to-month basis, maybe before All-Star break, post All-Star break, or year by year when looking at a specific player. But when you're going rather start by start or week by week or whatever it happens, or every 2 weeks or whatever it is with these pitchers, I just feel like there's so many other more specific stats out there that can give you a better picture of what's going on a day-to-day basis than Sierra, because like I said, Sierra is this all-encompassing stat that a lot goes into it, and it can be really beneficial to understand it at times, but also at the same time, like, I think that understanding what a FIP is, like FIPS and WHIPs and stuff like that, is much more beneficial to you on like an everyday basis. So Sierra is definitely something I look at every once in a while, but it's just not, and I'm not even saying that I don't put stock into it. I just feel like if I'm trying to understand what's going on in a detailed way on a day-to-day basis, like it's really hard to get a clear picture just using Sierra.
I agree. I think my number one reason why I don't look at Sierra a ton is, so it's an ERA estimator is like the language that Fangraphs would use, is it's meaning it's on the same scale as FIP, ERA, XFIP, all of that. Like it's adjusted to, so it makes sense. Like around a 3 Sierra is very, very good. 3.5 is pretty good. 3.9 is like league average, and then as you get into the 4s and 5s, it's you get worse and worse. The thing with Sierra is it adjusts for like if a pitcher gets a lot of ground balls, it will adjust differently for that versus if a guy's a high fly ball pitcher, because there's different expected batting averages on different types of balls in play. My issue with Sierra though is, like, one, batted ball profiles are not extremely consistent on a regular basis. So what I mean by that is, like, you definitely have your guys like Marcus Stroman who get a ton of ground balls. You have guys who are ground ball artists. You have certain guys like Christian Javier who seems like every ball put in play against him is in the air. Those guys are the exceptions rather than the rule. There's a lot more variance and a lot of more variability, especially start to start, like Toast mentioned, in terms of how many ground balls the guy's going to get versus how many fly balls he's going to induce. It depends on the team he's facing, and all of that stuff. My other issue with Sierra is it tries to weight all of those things so much, and like Toast said, it tries to take things that are outside of the pitcher's control and weight them effectively. My issue with Sierra, and I know that a lot of the math guys love Sierra, and it's not, again, it's just a different way of looking at the game. My issue with Sierra is defenses are part of what a pitcher is doing. So if you are, we've seen this in Boston time and time again. Eduardo Rodriguez, for what, like 4 or 5 years in a row, ground ball guy. The Red Sox had one of the worst infield defenses in recent memory behind him. So he had a 360 BABIP like 3 years in a row. And everybody's like, oh, he's so unlucky. Well, yeah, but his infield defense sucks, and that's not going to change. So Eduardo Rodriguez probably is not going to be a good pitcher until he gets new defenders behind him or he's able to miss more bats. The reason I like FIP better is FIP is like very, very dependent on home runs, walks, strikeouts. The reason those are important is missing bats is largely within a pitcher's control. If you're a Spencer Strider or a Paul Skeens, if you can throw the ball 100 miles an hour past someone, you don't really need a defense behind you. That's a very sustainable, I can miss bats, I can get strikeouts. Walks, if you're walking a lot of guys, you have bad command. Like, that's not your defense causing that. Typically, it's not hitters. Like, hitters in general will have good at bats, but if you're walking way more than the average pitcher, that says a lot more about the pitcher than it does any matchups or any individual hitters that they faced. And then home runs, of course, while home runs can be a little bit finicky and there can be some good and bad luck on balls in play, by and large, if someone hits a home run, they've hit that ball at least moderately well, so you're giving up reasonably hard contact for them to be able to hit that ball over the fence. So that's why I like FIP. XFIP is basically FIP, but it adjusts home run rate to the league average. So like if a guy if he's allowed a 15% home run rate on fly balls, it'll adjust it to the league average, which is usually closer to 10%. There's there's pros to that. There's cons to that. I like FIP better than XFIP personally, because some guys miss middle on the plate more than other guys. I don't think you should have your home run rate adjusted when you miss middle more than other guys. So I like FIP better than XFIP. I like it better than Sierra. I for sure like it better than ERA, obviously. But there's a time and a place to use all of those stats. I think Sierra makes a lot more sense as like a season long metric, and then you can compare, because over time, again, like there's less noise. There's a lot more noise on like a start to start basis with Sierra than it is over the course of 150 or 200 innings. So I like Sierra more as a season long stat. I think FIP, XFIP have more value and especially FIP, I think, have more value on like a start to start basis. WHIP, BABIP, I think those are metrics that like every 5 days you can look at and they give you something that has predictive value, if that makes sense.
Yep. 100%. I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. So I guess that's not. I don't think there's any other real questions that I wanted to get to. Bat speed. I understand everybody wants some more about bat speed, but
Bat speed
there's not.
doesn't change a whole lot. Like
Yeah, I was
that's
just
the
gonna
one thing
say,
with
like
bat
it's.
speed.
Yeah, it's something that I think is going to come in more handy later on. It's just, yeah, it's still so brand new. Like he just said, it's not. It doesn't change. So, I would love to come on here and do some cool stuff, but at the same time, it's not like again, it's not like changing and stuff. So it would all be very redundant.
Bat
I
speed
would.
training, I'll just like real quick, like bat speed training happens in the off season. It's very, very difficult to add bat speed in season because to add bat speed, you have to do very intense weighted bat programs. You have to either that, alter mechanics, or you have to be in the weight room a ton, which when you're playing baseball every single day, you're not going to go do max lifts every single day and then go try to hit 100-mile-an-hour baseballs. So what a guy's bat speed is in April is probably going to be pretty consistent to what it is in May. And then, from June to July, July to August, et cetera, et cetera. The one thing to note is like if a guy's bat speed falls off exponentially, it could be injury related. It could be fatigue related. So that's worth monitoring. And if we see anything like that, we'll definitely share it with you guys. But really, it's like season to season changes with bat speed is really what's important. And the reason it's important, and we went over the math a little bit a couple shows ago, but for every 1 mile an hour bat speed you add 1.2 miles an hour of exit velocity. And if you have optimal ball flight, you're adding 7 feet on a fly ball or a ball in the air. So you figure if you add 3 miles an hour of bat speed, that's 21 extra feet that you could be adding on balls in the air. So that's why bat speed is so important. It obviously makes a ton of sense intuitively. If you can hit the baseball harder, then the baseball can go further. And that's very, very good for a lot of reasons. It can get by defenders on the ground faster. Even if they have really good range, you can hit the ball in the gap more consistently. You can hit the ball over the fence more consistently. So bat speed is very, very important. If you have any specific questions about specific players, we're more than happy to look into guys.
Yeah.
Basically, what you need to know is Giancarlo Stanton is an alien. Swings and misses a lot, but Giancarlo Stanton can hit the absolute piss out of the baseball. He did it again tonight. And
Twice, right?
What do you say?
Did you do it twice tonight?
I know he hit a home run last night, too. So he's for sure has.
Man, the Dodgers scored 20 runs yesterday, and they have 1 run tonight. And Corey Seager just hit a 3-run shot. God damn it. We knew that was coming.
Is that our feel-good story of the week, Toast? God damn.
No, I don't have a feel-good story, but I just want to put, I guess, if you are a fan of the Padres, the Giants, the Cubs, the Reds, the Cardinals, the Pirates, you're in this thing. It's going to be a long summer, boys. Strap up because I mean, the National League is absolutely terrible. That's part of the reason that I was talking about the Brewers earlier is because of how bad the National League is. And if I can, in my head, eliminate a team like the Dodgers, and I understand that Commish doesn't feel the same way, but if I can eliminate a team like the Dodgers and I can eliminate the team like the Braves, again, those teams are going to play each other, would play in the playoffs and stuff like that. But my point is that if you're a team like the Pirates to make the playoffs, I mean, you're in this thing. I mean, you're a game out right now. I mean, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams within 1 game of an NL wildcard spot right now. I understand that it's the 12th right now. I'm well aware of that. But my point being is that usually there's a little bit more separation there. And maybe with some more games there will be, but I don't feel like any of those teams that I just mentioned are head and shoulders above any other one. So it's going to probably come down to who can stay healthy and who maybe makes a move at the deadline. But if you're a team in the National League that, like I said, that's not in the head of your division right now, I wouldn't worry about it because I mean, it's nothing like the American League. I mean, the American League, I mean, you essentially have the Yankees, the Orioles, and then you have obviously somebody out of the Central like the Twins and stuff like that. But all those bad teams, the Red Sox, Tigers, Blue Jays, Rays, Rangers, Astros, Angels. I mean, you don't have to worry about any of those teams really. I mean, I'm dead serious when I say Yankees, Guardians, Mariners, Orioles, Royals, Twins. That's probably your playoffs. And I don't even know if that much changes. So unless there's a hell amount of injuries or something to one team, I wouldn't even pay attention to the American League. I would put all your eggs in the basket of the NL, because if there's going to be a team that comes out of nowhere to win the World Series, it's going to be out of the NL. That's my rant.
That's his rant.
Oh, yeah. And the Royals at home, they're dead. Not good anymore. Dead. Bonito. Done. Now I'm done.
Danito. I don't really have like a feel good with the MLB. There's a lot of good baseball being played. I just want to give a shout out to, his name's Jared Gaynor. He runs Pitching Coach U. Just launched a really, really cool product if people are interested in it. It's meant for coaches, but if anyone has any interest in like how to throw certain pitches, how to read movement plots, which have become really, really popular with guys like Lance, and there's a lot of guys that are like Pitcher List has that kind of stuff now. You see,
I
like,
love the pitchers list. I love those.
yeah,
guys.
it's like, so a lot of guys are like talking about movement plots and things like that. Now, this is like $100 something, and like I bought it for our organization. I run a baseball academy for people who are, if you've missed that on previous shows or don't know that about me, but I bought this for all of our coaches. This is a phenomenal resource, and it's so accessibly priced. This is stuff that usually costs $500, $600, $700, if not into the thousands. And he's giving this away. It's a few hours of modules. Has some really, really great stuff in here. He was a minor league pitching coach for the Twins for a few years. He pitched an indie ball. Has some really cool stuff on his resume. He works with a ton of really high profile guys right now. Really, really cool product. I don't get anything if you buy it. If you have any interest in it, like, it's a cool product that I personally bought that we're using in our organization to train young athletes. And I would recommend checking that out if that's something that might interest you. Really good dude, really transparent. Has really just, it's been cool to see him build his platform the last couple of years that he's jumped into the space. So just want to give him a shout out.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I like that. That's really, really cool. So, well,
also,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, our 16s won a pretty significant tournament last weekend as well, which was pretty cool. It's fun for those guys. Go kick some.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we made it under an hour. That's good. That's another positive, right?
We did. Well, we could kill 2 minutes and 54 seconds here just for shits and gigs.
With what?
Or we could get out of here.
You got something to share?
I got nothing for 254. No, I think we should just get out of here.
Yep, I agree. I'm going to go watch the Dodgers lose a little bit more. Shohei hit a piss missile today, though. That was absolutely awesome. So,
yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah.
Well, guys, appreciate all the comments. It was really fun going through all the comments this week. I try to respond to a lot of them if I can. It's a little tougher during the summer just because I'm at the field so much, but it's really, really cool to see so many people interested in the show.
Very
really,
cool.
Really cool to see so many people that agree with my thoughts on Bo Bichette. I kid. But no, really appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, like we said, throw them in there. Really, like if we have an hour's worth of questions, we will literally just come on here and do an hour's worth of answering questions, helping you guys understand things. So we see all of them. We read all of them every single week, and we appreciate each and every one of you.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. So for me, for Commish, I'll have you guys in.
See you guys.